Xiahou Dun. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
I would never have been able to come this far in such a chaotic world without your help.
I am Xiahou Dun. Come if you want to die. Now we will let you go in peace. Farewell, cousin.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Night Owl channel. Welcome back to the series where we're counting down the top Dynasty Warriors characters as of the latest game. Coming in at number 2, we have the one-eyed legend, Xiahou Dun. Xiahou Dun is one of Cao Cao's cousins from his father's side of the family. Though known as a short-tempered man in his youth, he became a lawful and cultured bureaucrat who focused on logistics and domestics. He served Cao Cao for his entire military career, dying mere months after his lord, and he famously lost his left eye at Xiahou from a stray arrow. Roman to the Three Kingdoms portrays him as a capable war general and has him famously devour his left eye after it skewered the aforementioned arrow. Ha! And with that being said, before we jump into how Xiahou Dun, the legend himself, has changed since his playable debut back in the first Dynasty Warriors game and an OG character of the series, take a look at the popularity polls to see why Xiahou Dun lands up here all the way at number 2. In the first popularity poll, consisting of about 75,000 total votes, we have Xiahou Dun breaking the top 3 at number 3 with 2,416 votes out of a total of over 75,000 votes. In the second popularity poll, he's going to drop down to the 7th position, and then in my personal ranking, he's going to stay in the top 10 at number 5. So Xiahou Dun does relatively well in all 3 polls, and that's why he's up here at number 2, because everybody seems to love Xiahou Dun. I don't see how you can't really not like this character. I've always liked the way he looked and the way he fought. He was a very intriguing character as soon as you pick up the game and you notice this guy with an eye patch on and you're like, whoa, that's a badass looking character. And it's definitely portrayed pretty heavily throughout most of the games, the badassery that Xiahou Dun carries within himself and that he expects from others around him. Xiahou Dun's one of my favorite characters to play with on the wayside. He's just, again, a very intriguing character. I've always liked the way he's looked, his fighting style. I'm not a big fan of the sword fighting styles, but Xiahou Dun's style has always been pretty interesting to me, and I've always had a lot of fun with it. I always liked his relationship with Cao Cao and Xiahou Yuan. It was always cool to see that brotherly relationship that they have with him. And even though he has that stoic seriousness about him, he's able to always be there for the people that need him the most. And he's one of the most reliable and capable generals within the game. Before we talk about the changes that Xiahou Dun has gone through within the series, let's talk a little bit more about Xiahou Dun for people who don't know. So like I already said, Xiahou Dun was a Chinese military general and politician serving under the warlord Cao Cao, and he served for a few months under Cao Cao's successor Cao Pi before he died. As one of Cao Cao's most trusted generals, Xiahou Dun aided the warlord in his campaigns against a number of Cao Cao's rivals, including Lu Bu, Liu Bei, and Sun Quan. Like I already mentioned, Xiahou Dun lost his left eye when he was hit by a stray arrow during the battle against Lu Bu, and subsequently became known among the rank and file as One-Eyed Xiahou. And then again, going back to the Roman to the Three Kingdoms, that Xiahou Dun, when hit by the arrow, pulls it out and actually eats it. I don't think that's part of history. I don't think that actually happened. But again, going back to the badassery of a character, when you see that within the game, you're like, what the heck? This dude is on another level. And that feat in itself is just enough to make you really take notice of a character like Xiahou Dun. Within the earlier games, he has the eye patch preemptively on before he gets the damage to his eye. So he's already a noticeable character because he's the only one that has this eye patch. Of course, when they add Sima Shi, he gets his eye patch as well, or like his eye covering, and you're like, whoa, what happened to him? Did something similar happen to this guy? But nothing comes close to badassery like a character that takes out his own eyeball and eats it. But Xiahou Dun was a very reliable general to Cao Cao in the Wei forces. He played a very big part in the early creation of the Wei forces, being part of Cao Cao's forces from the beginning of his campaign, the beginning of his career. Xiahou Dun would do anything and everything for Cao Cao to make sure that his dream and his vision comes to life. He was a very serious and loyal man who rarely questioned Cao Cao, and he's usually a very focused person, but he can become a hothead who lets his temper get the best of him, especially when it comes to the subject of Guan Yu. But Xiahou Dun's a legend of this series, a legend of this game. He's a very popular character, and it's hard to argue otherwise. And there's a number of good things that I can say about Xiahou Dun, but with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into how Xiahou Dun changed within the series, and then we'll talk about his significant moments within the game and all the relationships and how he passed away. So let's start off with Xiahou Dun's appearance because it is the most noticeable thing about the character. So Xiahou Dun within most of the games looks pretty good, except for when he goes from Dynasty Warriors 5 to Dynasty Warriors 6. I think the outfit itself is fine. I just personally don't like when they take his long hair and they chop it off to make him have short hair. I'm not a fan of the short hair, except for Dynasty Warriors 9. It actually looks pretty good on him. Dynasty Warriors 8 was okay. I did not like Dynasty Warriors 7 and Dynasty Warriors 6, but I genuinely like Xiahou Dun with the longer hair. It just had a different vibe to it. He had a different look. Maybe the way he sounded or the way he carried himself in the earlier games what added on to that. But when I saw him first in Dynasty Warriors 6 a long time ago, I did not like the way he looked with the short hair. And as of now, I would say it's relatively fine. I'm used to it. It's cool. It's no big deal. I think he looks really good in Dynasty Warriors 9 with his hair. But in terms of his outfit and the way he looks, the eye patch changes from each game. I really like the one in Dynasty Warriors 4. Dynasty Warriors 4 and 5 is probably my favorite looks for him. Dynasty Warriors 9 is a close second because they go back to his roots in Dynasty Warriors 5, and he's just a really intriguing looking character. But very solid appearance for Xiahou Dun. Can't complain too much about it. I just don't really like the short hair that much. Now, moving on to his weapon style. So within most of the games, he has pretty much the same weapon, which is a sword. The type of sword that he uses changes from the earlier games into the later ones, and then Dynasty Warriors 6 he gets a completely different weapon. So the pre-Dynasty Warriors 6 era, he gets a willow leaf saber, which is basically a weapon that's very thin. It's a very thin weapon versus what he has in the later games, which is just a regular Po Dao, regular sword. It's a bit thicker, it's a bigger weapon. It has a little bit of different properties than the earlier weapon, but I would say with the sword style in the earlier games was actually pretty fun. Like, I am not a fan of the sword users, but Xiahou Dun in the earlier games was pretty fun to play with. His AoE with the sword, I don't know if it was the weapon I was using and it just had a longer range, but it just seemed like it did more AoE damage than some of the other sword users. And not just on his Musou attacks, but on his regular ones as well. But generally, I thought his moveset was pretty good. The later games, they were okay. It was alright. I liked it more in Dynasty Warriors 9. Just the flow attacks made it easier to use. Dynasty Warriors 7 was a little unbearable, to be honest. It just felt, I don't know, it just felt really slow, really boring. Didn't really enjoy it that much. Dynasty Warriors 8 was okay. Can't complain too much about it. And then in Dynasty Warriors 6, he got the wolf teeth mace. So for this weapon, it got better with Peng De. But when Xiahou Dun originally had the weapon in Dynasty Warriors 6, it was an okay weapon. It just didn't, it wasn't really polished yet. Once they gave it to Peng De, I think the weapon got a lot better, but it was just super slow. It was a huge AoE attack. It was great. But there was just moments when you were doing your combo, you would get stuck in certain points, and then it would be a very easy counter. You know, it's a very hard weapon to really use in those situations. But for the most part, I thought it was relatively okay. It's just not a weapon that I would particularly use. And then revisiting the Musou attacks again. So in the earlier games, they were good. Can't complain about them too much. I really like the AoE element that they added to the end of the attack. I thought it was a good Musou attack, very solid. Dynasty Warriors 6, it was okay. It made the weapon a little faster when he was doing the combo up until the end. And then the AoE at the end is okay. Very good for like crowd control if you're surrounded by a bunch of people. 1-on-1 is a little hard because he goes left to right and then he goes in front of him. So sometimes you'll miss those two and then the person will roll out the way and you miss the last part of your Musou attack. And then moving on to Dynasty Warriors 7, 8, and 9. They were okay. Very basic, simple kind of Musou attacks, nothing too flashy. I like the elements that they give him for Dynasty Warriors 8, like the animation for his regular Musou is pretty good. But it's nothing too crazy where I would want to use it again. I thought it was just fine. A very basic Musou attack, very simple, nothing too flashy. It kind of goes with the character. Xiahou Dun is a very simple person. When it comes to what he needs to get done within the series or what he needs to get done for Cao Cao, he's there. And it's a very simple thing. Whatever needs to be done is done. There's no complications. There's no resistance to whatever needs to be done, except for maybe with Guan Yu. But that might just be a point of him trying to prove that he's better than Guan Yu. or just as good as Guan Yu, which we'll dive deeper into the relationship. Now, his style attacks, the weapon style was okay. It's one of the better sword styles within the game, so I can't complain too much about it, but it was an okay weapon, and it just fits Xiahou Dun pretty well. It fits him really, really well as a character, so I can't complain too much about that. Now, moving on to his voice acting. So his voice acting was in most of the games is pretty good. Starting off with Dynasty Warriors 3.
The rats are gathering.
Dynasty Warriors 3 was pretty good. Can't complain too much about him. Fit the character. It didn't sound too weird for him. It added on to his look and it fit him pretty well, so I couldn't complain about the way he sounded in Dynasty Warriors 3. Dynasty Warriors 4 through 8, he actually gets the exact same voice actor for all of those games.
Thanks, whoever you are. You just opened my eyes.
And because he does, it just fits Xiahou Dun so well. It's definitely his best voice. Can't complain about it really at all. It really showcases the personality of Xiahou Dun, and I thought the voice fit him pretty well. Dynasty Warriors 9 was also pretty good.
A huge man, more frightening than the tigers. I hadn't really believed the rumors until then.
I think it was relative to the previous one. It was actually pretty on par. I mean, like if I had to choose, I would definitely choose the Dynasty Warriors 4 through 8 one because we just heard it for so long. But the Dynasty Warriors 9 guy did a good job as well. I think it fit pretty well for Xiahou Dun. And I really can't complain at all about the way he sounds at all. His voice acting was excellent. Now moving on to the last parts of the video, we have his significant battles, his relationships, and his death. So we're going to start off with his significant battles. Xiahou Dun is part of a lot of battles within the Dynasty Warriors series and part of Cao Cao's forces, but I wouldn't say he has really that many significant battles. So the first one I want to talk about is the Battle of Yan Province. So the Battle of Yan Province is a very interesting one. I wouldn't say he plays a significant role within the game, except for I think maybe this is when he recruits Dian Wei or Zhu Zhu. One of those two he recruits during this battle, so that's important. But the main reason I want to talk about this is because of what I read historically for him for this battle. It turns out during this battle, when Cao Cao left to attack Tao Qian, Xiahou Dun stayed behind. He defended Yan Province. They ended up getting attacked by Lu Bu because of Chen Gong's rebellion. So they attacked Xiahou Dun at Yan Province. He defended them successfully, forced them to retreat. Xiahou Dun would then pursue them so he could rescue some of Cao Cao's family members. When he left behind a territory known as Puyang, which Lu Bu would end up taking. Once he did that, Lu Bu would pretend to surrender to Xiahou Dun, who fell for it, and he ended up getting taken hostage by the enemy in his own camp. So Lu Bu's men, who had Xiahou Dun as a hostage, demanded a heavy ransom for him. So then Xiahou Dun ends up getting rescued by an officer named Han Hao. So the hostage takers ended up surrendering, and they would end up kowtowing and begging for their lives. What they said was that they wanted to obtain some money for them, and they wanted to leave after that. The officer Han Hao ended up ignoring their pleas and ended up executing them anyway. So I wanted to mention that really quick. Moving into the Battle of Xiapi, very important battle for Xiahou Dun because this is the battle that he loses his left eye. I mean, that's pretty much the significance of the battle for Xiahou Dun. He plays a big role in that battle, helping Cao Cao secure that land and, of course, take down one of the greatest warriors of the time. But in most of the games, there's a cutscene where Xiahou Dun gets shot in the eye, he rips it out, and he eats it. Of course, they don't actually show it, but it's implied that he rips it out, he eats it. This is where Xiahou Dun becomes pretty much a legend, because who does that? Like, that's crazy. Pull out your own eye after you get shot in the eye. Your first thing is probably going to think of is get this thing out because it hurts so much, but Xiahou Dun's like, no, I'm taking this out and I'm eating it. And then continues fighting the rest of the battle until they obviously win. But very important battle for Xiahou Dun because he lost his eye. Now moving on to his last significant battle, which is the Battle of Fan Castle. I'm also going to talk about the relationship with Guan Yu here because, I mean, this is the reason why it's so significant for him, because Xiahou Dun, at least on the Wei side, this is where he kills Guan Yu. So up until this point, Guan Yu and Xiahou Dun, they did not have a very good relationship. I think Guan Yu saw it more as a positive or friendly relationship, and Xiahou Dun saw it more of as a negative and hostile relationship. Xiahou Dun always wanted to prove to Cao Cao and anyone else who doubted his abilities that he was just as good or even better than the God of War. So this was the moment where Xiahou Dun basically proves that point and comes out on top against Guan Yu. There are a few cutscenes revolved around this. In some of the games, it's a very dramatic moment for Xiahou Dun and Guan Yu. According to history, Guan Yu actually gets killed by the Wu forces, but again, on the Wei side, he's the one that ends up killing Guan Yu. They also have a very interesting relationship because when Guan Yu originally tries to leave, to go back to Liu Bei's forces, in the earlier games, there was a stage called Guan Yu's Escape, where Xiahou Dun was the reason that it was hard for him to leave. Whether you're playing with Xiahou Dun or Guan Yu or another character that's supposed to be in that stage for whatever reason, there is always a cutscene or something that Xiahou Dun's like yelling at Guan Yu to come back, fight him. You're not going to leave. I'm not going to let you be a threat to Cao Cao. Xiahou Dun never really liked Guan Yu, and I think it's because of the way that Cao Cao treated Guan Yu, because of what he saw in Guan Yu, what he wanted from Guan Yu. I think the way that Guan Yu denies Cao Cao's request. I think Xiahou Dun saw that as a sign of disrespect to Cao Cao, so he's seeing it as a disrespect to someone that he treasures the most within the series, which is why Xiahou Dun has this fiery hostility towards Guan Yu. I don't think Guan Yu really registers that until, even when they're fighting, I don't even think Guan Yu registers that, because there are moments, I think, in some of the games when, like, you know, Guan Yu dies and his special dialogue with him was like, I'm glad it was you, Xiahou Dun. That could be an honorable thing, that could be a personality trait of Guan Yu, but because he's directly addressing Xiahou Dun, there's got to be a special connection there for Guan Yu. I just don't think he understands the hatred, or the real hatred, that Xiahou Dun has for him. A very important relationship and a very important rivalry within the series. And this battle for him, the Battle of Fallen Castle, was the climatic moment for Xiahou Dun, because this is the moment where he ends up killing Guan Yu. And he basically, I would say, realizes probably one of his greatest desires within the series. Now, moving on to his relationships, or the rest of his relationships, and then we'll cover his death. So, starting off with Cao Cao, a very close relationship with Cao Cao. It's very evident within all the games. This is the guy that he's originally walking in with. This is his right-hand man. This is the guy that, no questions asked, whatever is needed for Cao Cao, Xiahou Dun is there in a heartbeat. I would say, actually, this is where, going back to Guan Yu real quick, Xiahou Dun and Guan Yu are similar. The loyalty that Xiahou Dun displays for Cao Cao is the exact same loyalty that Guan Yu displays for Liu Bei. He has an unwavering, unbreakable bond to Cao Cao, and he will do whatever it takes in order to make Cao Cao's dream come to life. Within Dynasty Warriors 9, I kind of like the ending for Xiahou Dun, the way, you know, Cao Cao kind of addresses the whole Guan Yu thing, because they don't ever really do that in any of the other games, because Cao Cao spends so much time saying how great he is, but never really praising Xiahou Dun, at least to that extent. There are moments when he does praise Xiahou Dun for the things that he's done, but it's good to see that within Dynasty Warriors 9, Cao Cao had the awareness, or, you know, he recognized within Xiahou Dun that the thing that was eating him up was the behavior that Cao Cao had towards Guan Yu. So a very close relationship with those two. I mean, they're almost as close as brothers. I mean, they're at the point where they can read each other's minds. Xiahou Dun can instinctively know what's wrong with Cao Cao without even really saying anything. Like I was mentioning before about the significant battles, Xiahou Dun had a lot of battles under Cao Cao, and even though he didn't have like a significant role in the battles of like Hefei or Changban or Chibi, within the series he's there and he's doing what he can to help. Very good relationship for Xiahou Dun. It's his closest within the game, and it's very obvious from the moment you pick up and you play a Wei story that this guy is Cao Cao's right hand man, and Xiahou Dun's willing to do whatever it takes to help Cao Cao realize his dream. Now moving on to his second most important relationship with Xiahou Yuan, and I would say these two are pretty much brothers as well. I would say just as close as him and Cao Cao. These two, Xiahou Dun and Xiahou Yuan, have been there with Cao Cao since the beginning, so Xiahou Dun has that reliability within Xiahou Yuan to get things done. They both rose to incredible ranks within Cao Cao's forces, both generals, both commanders, both reliable people that Cao Cao has implicit trust in, and these two will do whatever it takes for realizing Cao Cao's dream. And because they're on the same page so often, it's just cool to see that Xiahou Dun has another relationship like this that he can really rely on. I also like the fact that Xiahou Yuan's able to kind of play around a little bit with Xiahou Dun. I don't think he'd ever break his stoicness or his ability to really, like, you know, remain calm and collected and everything, but it's really cool to see that, even though, you know, I would say it's a very intimidating presence to have somebody, you know, you're joking around and, you know, Xiahou Dun's very stone-faced about it. Xiahou Yuan's able to continuously do that because of the relationship that they've established since the beginning of the game. But a very important relationship for Xiahou Dun, super significant. Now we're going to cover the rest of his minor ones, and then we'll finish up with his death. Moving on to his relationship with Zhang Liao. So this is a pretty good relationship for Xiahou Dun, definitely reliable, definitely someone he trusts. Not super close like with Cao Cao and Xiahou Yuan, but it's definitely there. It's definitely a mutual respect between these two characters. I definitely would say Xiahou Dun definitely recognizes the talent and ability that Zhang Liao brings to Cao Cao's forces, and I would say that they share a pretty good relationship, and they can both rely on each other to get things done. Now moving on to a relationship with Dian Wei. Another similar relationship with him because Dian Wei was there pretty much from the beginning, and Xiahou Dun is the one that recommends Dian Wei to Cao Cao, at least in some of the games. So there's definitely an implicit relationship there, some sort of trust. Obviously Xiahou Dun has an eye for talent, no pun intended. He has an eye for talent with Dian Wei because he could look at him and just obviously see that he's a good fit for being Cao Cao's bodyguard. If Xiahou Dun is vouching for somebody to be that close to Cao Cao in terms of a bodyguard, where you're very close to Cao Cao at all times, then Xiahou Dun definitely has to have a good relationship with this person, because he's basically putting a lot of trust into this character to keep the person that he cherishes the most safe, which Dian Wei ends up doing at the Battle of Guan Castle. And in Dian Wei's ending, Xiahou Dun is there, very remorseful that they lost a very talented and capable person. But a very good relationship that those two have. It's not super close like Cao Cao and Xiahou Yuan, but to have someone like that, bring them in and bring them as close to Cao Cao as he did with Dian Wei, he's definitely going to have some sort of relationship there with that character. Now moving on to his relationship with Cao Ren, very similar relationship again with him and Zhang Liao, because again, Cao Ren's been there since the beginning, technically since, you know, Cao Ren and, you know, Cao Cao are related, technically they're related as well. Another person that Xiahou Dun can rely on implicitly to get things done, and it's not a super close relationship, I think, because Cao Ren is such a dutiful character. He's just there to do his job, do what he can to help out, you know, defend the areas he needs to defend, and then move on to the next thing. He's not really there to make a lot of conversation or really develop any like relationships or anything like that. It's kind of like an implicit understanding that these two have with each other, that they're there to do their job, help their lord move forward. You know, I'm sure there is a very mutual respect and understanding between these two characters. And then the last relationship I'm going to talk about is his relationship with Xun Yu. So the only reason I want to talk about this is because it seems out of all the strategists within the games, this is the person he's closest with. He actually has a couple moments with his character, and they seem to share a very interesting bond. Even when Xun Yu comes to, you know, the battle of, I believe, Nanjun, he's been branded or exiled to like a certain position within Cao Cao's forces to the point where he's not supposed to be on the battlefield. Xiahou Dun's just like, yeah man, come with us, come give us a strategy, make sure you have your apology ready for Cao Cao. It's another character that Xiahou Dun, I think, implicitly trusts, because even though he fell out of Cao Cao's favor, Xiahou Dun still is able to have that relationship with his character, which means that there is something special between these two. And that's something I just wanted to mention really quickly, because he's basically pardoning this character when he shows up when he's not supposed to be there, after Cao Cao tells him to basically, you know, stay away from the battlefield. And then last but not least, let's go ahead and talk about Xiahou Dun's death. I think he dies of illness. It's not really mentioned within any of the games. He just kind of passes away, and then that's pretty much it. He doesn't get killed by anybody. There's nothing, anything like that that happens within any of the games. According to history, according to what I've read, he died just a few months after Cao Cao. I don't know if it's related to the way he felt after Cao Cao died or whatever it was. I'm sure within the games you can imply that, but that's pretty much how he ends up passing away, and that's pretty much the end of Xiahou Dun here. Number 2 on the list, the one-eyed legend, the one-eyed general. I mean, he's a very legendary character for the series. One of my favorites. He's always going to be one of my favorites. His look was really cool. His weapon style was not the most exciting to look at. It's just a sword, but I kind of liked it. You know, it was a little more fun than the average sword user. That's all I have for him here. Let me know what you guys think about him down below. If you guys use him, do you guys like him? He's up here pretty high. I'm sure there's some big fans out there for the one-eyed man himself. But with that being said, that's it for number 2. So you guys are going to be seeing number 1 here real shortly. I don't have to introduce him. You guys already know who it is. I hope you guys are enjoying the series up to this point. This is a 4-year journey that I've been on, and I'm excited to have all the videos out for you guys. But yeah, guys, if you guys enjoyed it, definitely appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.